Welcome everyone to the Disability Futures Virtual Festival, Session 3, Bodies of Wisdom, Disability Justice x Climate Justice. The Ford Foundation is committed to making our events as accessible and welcoming to as many people as possible. Today, we're integrating accessibility through self-descriptions you'll hear each speaker give, live captioning, audio descriptions, and American Sign Language. Audio descriptions are available by clicking on the interpretation button at the bottom of the screen and selecting the audio description channel. You may hear our presenters take brief pauses throughout today's program. Please note that this is intentional to give our audio describers the opportunity to describe visuals for those utilizing the audio description channel. Live closed captions are available by clicking on the live transcript button at the bottom of your screen and turning on the captions. Alternatively, you can find the stream text link in the chat box or your participation guide. We actively encourage you to use the chat to interact with and react to the program. Please click on the chat button at the bottom of your screen. This will open the chat panel and let you send messages to panelists and attendees. We are dedicated to providing a harassment-free digital experience for everyone. Harassment refers to conduct that is unwelcome or uncomfortable. We do not tolerate harassment of presenters or participants in any form and will promptly remove anyone who does so. If you are being harassed, notice that someone else is being harassed, or have any other concerns, please contact events@fordfoundation.org immediately. For technical questions during the event, please email av@fordfoundation.org and we will do our best to assist you. Thank you. Our program will begin shortly.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I am here to thank you for joining the Disability Futures Festival and to introduce a session that I am excited about, Bodies of Wisdom, Disability Justice x Climate Justice. I am Rebecca Coakley, and I have the honor of serving as a program officer in the President's Office at the Ford Foundation, developing the U.S. Disability Rights Program Strategy, the first of its kind at the Ford Foundation. I work alongside my colleagues in the Creativity and Free Expression team, Margaret Morton and Lane Harwell, and our colleagues across arts, film, and journalism, who are presenting this festival and funding the Disability Futures initiatives in partnership with the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation. My thanks to all of them for their tremendous commitment to the disability work. I have dwarfism, achondroplasia, so achondroplasia, which is the most common form of dwarfism. I am a redhead, so I have red hair to about my shoulders. I have an abundance of freckles, which I am very proud of. I am wearing a blue cardigan sweater, a black t-shirt, tortoiseshell glasses, and I am wearing my party shoes, which are black boots with red bottoms and little spikes on the heel, and they make me very happy. My pronouns are she, hers, and I am greeting you today from Washington, D.C., the land of the Piscataway and Anacostan people. Created by, for, and with disabled practitioners, and administered by United States Artists, Disability Futures is an initiative to resource and to spotlight the work of disabled creatives across disciplines and geography, and to amplify their voices individually and collectively. At Ford, we believe that disability demands justice, and we are committed to addressing disability in every area of our grant making, programming, and operations. Disability is critical to every area of social justice movement work, from the future of workers to technology, to society, to climate justice. For climate change in particular, we know that it both exacerbates and creates disability, and that any agenda in that space must center our community. This session interrogates the work at the intersections of disability, disability justice, and the human-centered climate crisis. Communities around the world are grappling with the growing number and the intensity of climate-related disasters because of climate change. Many in the disability community are asking, when climate disaster strikes, will able-bodied allies be there for us? In this session, Disability Futures Fellow and SIN's Invalid co-founder, executive and artistic director, Patty Byrne, along with Ellen Choi and Crosby of the climate justice organization, Movement Generation Justice and Ecology Project, will host a conversation exploring the connections between climate justice and disability justice. This session will also feature a screening selection from SIN's Invalid's 2020 virtual performance, We Love Like Barnacles. SIN's Invalid is a disability justice-based performance project centralizing disabled artists of color and queer and gender non-conforming artists with disabilities. Patty Byrne is widely recognized for their work to establish the framework and the practice of disability justice. Their professional background includes advocacy for immigrants who seek asylum due to war and torture, community organizing within the Haitian diaspora, international support work for Guatemalan democratic movements, work with incarcerated youth towards alternatives to the criminal legal system, offering mental health supports to survivors of violence, and advocating for the LGBTQI and disability perspectives within the field of reproductive genetic technologies. Ellen Choi is a Chinese Korean freedom fighter, DJ, and daughter of immigrants. She lives in Oakland with her partner and their magical child. As a young person in the early 2000s, she was politicized through hip hop and the environmental justice movement. She learned how to organize as a youth educator in the Bay. She founded Asians for Black Lives in the Bay Area in 2014 and has done anti-imperialist organizing with the Korean community for over a decade. She's celebrating her 10th year as a collective member at Movement Generation Justice and Ecology Project. Crosby is a collective member of Movement Generation and serves on several planning teams, including MG's Disability Justice team. Crosby's involvement with Movement Generation began in 2017 as a participant in their Justice and Ecology Retreat, as well as through the Black Land and Liberation Initiative. Crosby first began organizing in 2000 when they co-founded Common Ground, a queer and allied group at Olivet College, and later worked as a live-in residential counselor at Ruth's House, the Ruth Ellis Center's first transitional living home for unhoused LGBTQ youth in Detroit. In 2007, Crosby earned their MA in Curriculum and Instruction from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and taught for 10 years, primarily teaching 7th grade life science in San Francisco, while later organizing around racial justice in the Bay Area following the deaths of Michael Brown and Mario Woods in 2014 and 2015. A student of life, Crosby seeks to deepen relationships to self, community, ancestors, nature, and spirit as we shatter toxic myths of separation and remember our way forward together. My thanks to them for their participation, to all of the organizers, especially my colleagues in the Creativity and Free Expression team leading this work, and to all of you for joining us. I really hope this festival will deepen your awareness of the work at the intersections of creativity, disability, and movement work, and your engagement and support of disabled creatives. To support access needs for this session, we are providing American Sign Language, which you will already notice on the screen, closed captioning, which can be turned on or off at any time, and audio description, which can be accessed through the audio description translation channel. For additional access features, please refer to the access video and your participation guide, which were emailed to you and can be found on the event page, or write to av@fordfoundation.org with needs, questions, or ideas for how to enhance your experience through this session. With that, we're going to start with excerpts from the 2020 performance of We Love Like Barnacles. I'm going to pause for a few seconds to give our audio describers a moment to share what will be happening in the first few frames of the video. You will only hear them if you're on the audio description channel. Let's play the clip.
I am Mistress Asthma, and I want to scare you, make you think you're dying. Maybe you will. What kind of attack are you hoping for, my sweet? The kind that will land you in the emergency room at a moment's notice? Or does the slow terror of breathlessness, building to a sharp crescendo of panic, turn you on? You told me your yeses, your maybes, and your nos. Maybe I can tap my wildfire ashes onto your face, smother you in nuclear waste, and shower you with stormwater runoff. You do want to carry the umbrella so the acid rain doesn't sting my pretty eyes. You're open to fracking, but you need to be warmed up first. I'm very interested in filling your whole atmosphere with my dirty greenhouse gases. You would like that, wouldn't you, darling?
Being prepared means having access to resources, access to the necessary extras reserved for the privileged who don't think are privileged. They stand in front of us in their three-piece suits, asking if we are ready. Do we have an extra wheelchair? Do we have non-perishable goods stored away? Do we have a way to get out if we get hit by Mother Nature's anger? She's right to be angry, you know. She's tired of being raped by human greed. Crips who live on fixed incomes can't afford to buy extra food. Sometimes when we do, we eat it when we run out of food before our benefits arrive. Crips who need physical access and attendance don't do well in shelters. Crips with sensory disabilities can't handle crowded spaces. Most Crips who can breathe on their own can't afford to own a generator able to generate the same opportunity of survival. Crips can't afford to live being prepared for the worst, although the worst will always hit us harder. Already feared and hated as Crips. If you are undocumented, it doesn't matter if you live or die. Except to us, or others like you, who would rather die in a flood together than live where hope ceased to exist long ago. This is not going to happen to us. Not this time. Not like this. Not here. Not now. That's what we tell ourselves before and during a disaster. Because it is easier to believe the lies we tell ourselves instead of the lies being told by the non-disabled world. The non-disabled world wants to make things look good in writing, give us workshops, and then say there's nothing else they could have done. It is easier for the able-bodied minded to pretend to save us, organize evacuation drills with fake disabled people, telling us to register on the city's list. Are you on the list? Are you prepared?
No matter what you heard, Black people are in the future. We are the future. The powers that be choose to not hear us when we say, the land is ours, the planet is hurting, wear a mask, protect the water, Black lives matter. No body is disposable. And then I turn to my community, and they too are selective of which Black lives matter to them. They don't think Black disabled lives matter. Their ableism allows them to exclude us because they fear becoming us. Y'all may not want to hear this, though. We know that we listen with more than our ears. We listen with our entire bodies. We listen with our core. We feel and transmit those vibrations. We dance to communicate. We move to theorize. We shake to spread the word. We listen in sensual ways. Why don't you? What will it take for you to listen to us? How do we know we can trust you? There will come a time, that time may have already come for some, when folks will want to elbow their way to the front of the table and demand they be listened to. That's not how community building and collaboration works. You cannot inject yourself into a space created for us, by us, and demand a seat at the table. That is colonization. You need to get in line with the others who have worked to help us assemble the table before you share. You must observe and learn, listen and absorb. Then you must do the work to demonstrate you deserve to be here at the table. Usually that means helping us extend the table so that you may join. Everybody has a role. We don't need any fluffers. Stop the chaos, the killing of our Black and brown children. Black and brown drones continue to kill as they work endless for their kingdom. Black and brown workers continue to be killed as they tire endless work for their kingdom. Black and brown queens continue to be killed in their home as they try to rest from dedication and commitment to work, servicing their kingdom. Don't you learn? The bees cannot live without flowers, and the flower cannot live without the bee. If we use an Afrofuturistic approach to understanding current climate chaos, we would quickly realize it is our melanin that will keep us alive. As the earth gets warmer and the sun does its job, the lighter-skinned ones with no melanin will vanish because their resistance to their melanin convinces them whiter and lighter is better. That's the lie of white supremacy. What other lies do you believe? Listening to us requires you to stop lying to yourself.
I will fight for you. Will you fight for me?
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. And my name is Patty Byrne. I am a femme presenting Haitian and Japanese diasporic person with two buns on my head and a beige tank top and a lot of metal on my hands. And I'm getting a note that my volume is low. So know that in short, I'm a gorgeous creature and I'm happy to be here. Chat.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ellen Choi. I use she and her pronouns. I am a femme presenting Asian person with long dark hair and bangs. I'm wearing dangling earrings that have, there's a circle on top and a triangle at the bottom of each and a black shirt. I'm sitting in front of a white mantle with some artwork and family pictures. I'm a part of Movement Generation, and I am here in unceded Chochenyo Ohlone territory. also known as Oakland. And I'm so happy to be here. Thank you to everyone who organized this. Check.
Hey everyone, I'm Melissa Crosby. I go by Crosby, and my primary pronouns are they, them. I'm queer, gender non-binary, biracial, black, white, with locks past my shoulders. I'm wearing a gray shirt, sitting on a maroon and gold chair with some books in the background. And I'm zooming in from unceded Ohlone lands, Oakland, California. Just quick access check, in terms of access. I may pause to organize my thoughts from time to time. I may take a drink of water. Otherwise, all my access needs are being met. Patty, Ellen, did you want to speak to any access needs that are coming up for you before we start?
Thank you. Yes. Please continue to say if you have a difficult time hearing me. This is Patty. I have a really low voice, and I'll try to do something about it with the technology. And I have a mobility impairment, so someone may be assisting me getting water or pushing me sideways or moving my arms. And yeah, thanks for inviting that.
Thanks, Crosby. My needs are met at the moment. Thanks.
Right on, y'all. So before we start, I just wanted to offer some deep gratitude to you, Patty, and to the folks of Sins Invalid. Over the past 4 years, Movement Generation has been engaged in our own deep and intentional process of diving into our disability justice practices and commitments. And we've just been so grateful to be doing that alongside Sins Invalid through honest conversations, through feedback, and now we have this year-long study, collaborative study that we've been engaged in, and to be able to do that in mixed ability cross-movement space has really just been so invaluable. So deep appreciation to you and your crew for sure. And yeah, lots of love. You know how it is. In response to what we just watched, We Love Like Barnacles it's just everything. It's so much all in one. It's an amazing artistic compilation of poetry, song, dance, performance, storytelling. But it's also a testament to the lives, beauty, struggles, and wisdom of disabled artists and disabled people in general. I think for an able-bodied audience, it's a window into some of the ways that ableist systems and ableist privileges tends to manufacture environments that are not only disabling, but that are also destroying the planet and the ecosystems upon which we all depend. So it's that, but it's also, I think, an invitation. It invites us to ask so many questions, right? So questions about the relationship between extractive economies, climate chaos, and disability. These are not separate themes, right? It also invites us to think about what shifts are possible. And of course, what our role is, especially the role of able-bodied people in this critical moment in time. So I appreciate the ways that the artists shed light on the broader nature of what, Patty, I've heard you say so many times, ableism as an institutional force of oppression beyond the individual experience itself. Additionally, I think the use of multiple modalities and perspectives supports the audience in opening up from a heartfelt place for what might be for some realities that are outside of their own. And that's so important as we sort of expand our spheres of concern beyond self, family, right? And I think this is critical, because unfortunately, society often reinforces the othering of people with disabilities, even within our own movements, within our organizations, sometimes even within our own families. So there's this othering, this deep othering that's taking place. And we also know that folks with disabilities who have layers of marginalized identities, Black, trans, queer, uh, folks with disabilities experience this higher level of othering within the society. So I really appreciate the ways that this piece invites us to take a creative look at the multiple pathways ableism is permitted to travel and function throughout our society, whether it's internalized through shame and guilt, right? Whether it's interpersonal or systemic. We love like barnacles. It does all this while countering the narrative that impairments or disabilities are something to be pitied or judged, right? We know better. These pieces are really a powerful reminder, Patty, of the beauty and brilliance of all bodies. They remind us that, you know, we all have a story to tell, and that our personal story is very much connected to and impacted by the systems, policies, and values of the broader society. There's so much more that I could say, and I have notes for days, y'all. Trust me. But I want to just kind of give an opportunity for perhaps Ellen, if you'd like to share some thoughts, and then we'll go to Patty.
I don't know why I'm here. Crosby's brilliant and said it all. No, but I want first echo the gratitude and love for Patty and Sins Invalid and our organizational romance, and the invaluable learnings that we've had these past few years. Yeah, this performance is everything. We organized a watch party with our staff for the first round of viewings that you all organized, and that was really, really special. And so I actually do think Crosby really said a lot, but the things I'll add is from my own experience. I think it was both like an individual as well as like a political journey, and really critical experience to go through. So from the individual experience, you know, as an able-bodied person who's been in doing my best to learn and be in partnership, it still was a journey, right? If I'm 100% honest, the shame that came up, the discomfort, my own ableism, experiencing it while watching it was important in the way that the performance was put together and shown, and the artists that were chosen. Also, the fact that some of the artists were the people we had been building relationships with was really beautiful and cool, to see them in a different form and light, and then to hear their personal stories, right? And also just really the reflection moment it gave me around what am I, what are we doing, how are we supporting our disabled fam was important. And then from a political standpoint, just the important experience it took me through around what are our movements doing, right? I grew up politically in the environmental justice movement, and I think the important recognition and learning around how ableist some of our social movements have been, including the environmental justice movement itself and the climate justice movements, you know, all respect and love. I have so much I owe to those movements, and the important work that they are still doing, the mentors who I've learned from, and that we have to recognize how ableist those movements are, and how we have excluded disabled fam, both from recognizing y'all as an important frontline community, but also the leaders that we need and the framework of disability justice that we need to actually dismantle the system that we need to dismantle and build and create the world that we need. And so, yes, honor and love and gratitude for that journey that this performance through a beautiful cultural creation put me and us through.
thank you both. My goodness. I mean, I want to acknowledge how much MG and each of you like super duper step up in terms of, you know, taking leadership for your own path of learning, honestly, because, you know, we can't decolonize ourselves, or we can't, you know, none of this can happen from the outside, right? It's not an intellectual process only, right? It's a heart-led process, and we have to like be willing to take risks individually, and also, you know, to push our organizations to do that. So I'm really grateful that as individuals, you'll step up, and that, you know, with that pushing movement generation, and by pushing movement generation, then, you know, that pushes the our climate justice movement. And that's how, you know, we have to, I mean, we all know this, but that's how we have to roll, right? Like, it really is about relationships. And, you know, I honestly, you know, hadn't engaged with, I mean, I knew about climate justice as a movement, and I knew about the state of, you know, our planet, our globe, and I've been somebody that was ready to like resign myself, you know, and just to the overwhelm of it, and that this was a fight against, you know, so many, like essentially the extractive economy, and and all of its machinations all over the world, right? And I was like, okay, I don't know if we have time. Like, this is just so big, and I think I'm just gonna die. And so many people with disabilities, I think, also have, you know, kind of resigned ourselves to, okay, it's like I'm just not gonna make it through this. And it was actually through a relationship with, you know, my dear friend Micah Bizant, who was like, no, like we can't just resign ourselves. Like, I'm not resigning myself to that with you. And like, you know, personally and politically, like we need to build. And, you know, and as I thought about it and about my role in community and movement building, I realized, yeah, like we need to be in the future. And like I can't like whatever, stick my head in the sand, you know, and if I can challenge all these other systems of oppression, why can't I challenge the concrete material conditions that are happening right now? Because there is time for a shift, you know, and I keep thinking, like, if we already, I mean, it's obviously it's here, right? Like, we're not talking about climate change that will be coming. You know, we're talking about what's happening currently. And, you know, I remember seeing recently with the floods in Germany, one person that was interviewed was saying, well, I couldn't get in to the facility next door. And she was referencing, you know, a nursing home where, you know, Crips or disabled people and elders live. And she was saying people couldn't, that the windows weren't opening, and they had to open the doors from the inside, and they couldn't. And when I think about like my friends, and I'm like, no, we are not going down like that. No, we need to be in like all of the everything from the policy conversations to the movement building spaces to, you know, all the you know, direct actions, like in every single place where we're talking about, you know, how we are going to continue to live as a species, then we need to be there, not just as, you know, people with disabilities, but as brown Crips, as queer Crips, you know, as people with significant impairments, or as people with, you know, psych impairments. There's people, every kind of us, need to be able, yeah, how can the world lose it? Like, how can the world lose any of us, right? Like, we're magic. I'm sad for a world that doesn't have our magic in it.
Yeah, for sure, Patty. I feel all of that, and I think what comes up for me when you share that is this theme that I know that so many of us, have been made aware of around not going back to normal or this normalcy, right? And so I'd love to bring us to this kind of topic of normalcy, right? And I know Ellen, you've got some dope things to say about that too in terms of creative wildfire and. But so when I hear this, when I hear people say, can't wait for it to turn, get back to normal, 4 questions essentially come up for me. One, what is normal anyway? What is it that we're really missing? What is it that we really need? And what will it take to make these shifts that are in alignment with the essential needs of our planet and the people and beings more broadly who are disproportionately impacted? So, what is normal, right? When we talk about normal in the United States, what are we talking about? We're talking about the myths of white supremacy, white nationalism, immigration policies that separate families, Black people being killed by police, mountains of inescapable debt. If we're equating normal with the traditional dominant cultural values, then what we're really talking about are values that at the individual level are about fitting in rather than leaning into our full authentic selves. We're talking about the false notion of rugged individualism, the misbelief that we exist separate from, and even for many, the misbelief that we're superior to nature. At the economic level, I think what we're absorbed in is a system that is all about profit at all costs. It means allowing companies that create the problems to be in charge of the false solutions, right? And we see this in companies like Bayer, Monsanto, right? It means the normalization of violent systems that dig, burn, dump, often in low wealth communities of color. I mean, in my family is an example of this. I'm from Port Huron, northeast of Detroit. I live literally, my family still lives literally across the water from Chemical Valley. It's a 15-mile stretch of oil refineries, all kind of polluting chemical companies. The cancer rate in Port Huron is its own epidemic. So, and then I think at the spiritual level, what this equates to is a life with little meaning or an unhealthy attachment to whatever degree of comforts we're able to accumulate over our lives. And I get it, I get all that. The next question that comes up for me is what is it actually that we're missing? So I want to offer some okay, it's time to validate how people feel, I get it. Like, this time has been a time of loss, grief, stress, hardship, isolation for so many, right? Beyond the norm for some highly marginalized communities. Some people are just missing their families. Some people are missing the little things, going to the gym or whatever it is that you miss. I get it, right? So I can validate that for sure. But it's interesting, that people are looking back, are longing backwards instead of looking forwards, perhaps in part because the future feels so uncertain right now. There's a lot of unknown ahead of us. And that's why, like what you were saying, Patty, relationships are really going to carry us. We can't do it alone right now. No one can do this alone. What we're facing, no one can do this alone. We need each other. So what is it really that we need? I think we need to learn the lessons that the universe is trying to teach us right now. I feel like the universe will tap on your shoulder, you know what I mean? And then you don't listen. And then it starts to knock, So Mother Nature, the universe, whatever, you know, it's trying to tell us something, and we need to pick up on the clues and change our habits, change our ways, get to the root causes. But above that as well, in relationship to disability justice, we need to do some decentering, right? Decenter cis white, physically fit, you know, heteronormative people. I'm sorry, white people. You know, my mom's white. You know, I love white people. It's all good. But you know, this is not how we're going to find solutions right now. It's turning to the same power sources, you know, that have gotten us into this mess in the first place. So, you know, we need to reevaluate, you know, what our priorities are, and we need to center disabled bodies in that process, and disabled people and wisdom in that process. So I'm just going to leave it there and then turn it over to y'all. What are you thinking?
Saying amen. And yeah, I'm thinking, you know, and I'm sure, Alan, this is resonating for you too, like returning to normal is returning to ableism. You know, like returning to normal is, you know, returning to, you know, excluding people with disabilities in the same ways that we've been excluded. And what's interesting about the pandemic to me is the way that it was, as our, you know, colleague at Ray Joel Johnson has said, like, it's a mass, the pandemic was like a mass disabling event, right? Where, you know, we see where people were all of a sudden, you know, having to reevaluate, you know, their own risk that they're willing to take. And, you know, people were, you know, having to think about, is my life worth, rather, is my job worth what I'm risking for my, you know, basically my life? You know, is my job worth my children's lives? And, you know, and I think a lot of people are like, no, actually it is not. And it's an opportunity now. I mean, it's talking about, you know, the moment that we're in an opportunity to change things. You know, this moment, you know, where people are looking, you know, like what's happening next. Well, we don't possibly just let corporate agendas drive that. You know, it's like what's happening next is we are, you know, committing to an end to fossil fuels. You know, we're committing to an end to ableism, quite bluntly, and white supremacy. You know, an end to this, you know, right assertion of its, you know, twisted, self-absorbed agenda of itself, you know. And I can go on about this, but I wanna hung up the time now and tell me what you're thinking too.
I'm blown away by y'all and your wisdom. And yeah, so Crosby mentioned Creative Wildfire. We launched a website a few weeks ago, creativewildfire.org. It's a collaborative project, the Climate Justice Alliance and New Economy Coalition, but essentially it's centered around a manifesto around resisting the return to normal. And just the importance of this political moment, this moment in time on Earth, in the pandemic, the economic crisis, and how these systems are failing everyone, and mostly those on the front lines: Black, Brown, Indigenous, disabled, queer, femme, and that we don't want to return to normal. And in fact, this moment has cracked open the system, and it's through its failures, and it's time for those of us who can to wedge ourselves into that crack and bust open the future that we actually not just want, but need. And that looks many ways. And in many ways, it's how a lot of communities have already been organized. I mean, from the beginning of time, but I'm also talking about the movement work that people have been carrying on to build economic systems, systems of caring, mutual aid, ways that we're resisting both at the policy level, but also on the ground, building institutions, things that are shifting us, really shifting us out of this extractive economy. It's time for that, right? I think there's a moment in time politically that there's more folks are seeing the failures. Some people also say the system is working the way it's supposed to, and that's just the veil is being taken off. But anyways, like normal is ableist, normal is racist, normal is classist, right? Look at the folks in my community or my family, and the ways that a return to normal means more exploitation, more exclusion from the systems. And if we continue to normal, our planet or those systems that uphold the web of life and this planet that we depend on will continue to collapse. And I think it's our challenge not to be stuck in, the lack of hope, that existential crisis that I think we often come back to, which is it's too big. It's, this crisis is too big, but actually continue to build those relationships on the ground, continue to build movements, organize, right? Organize. If it's not within political organization, then organize your community, your neighbors, because I think it's time. It's been time. And I am grateful the disability justice framework and teaches us that if we are to dismantle ableism and understand this world through a disability justice framework, then we actually need to root our systems and our future in a system of sacredness and caring, right? Rather than extraction centered around profit and production. And so just to loop back to this conversation itself, it's like the larger picture, but it's also like specifically disability justice actually teaches us the pathway that we need towards the liberation of all, not just people, but beings, right? To come back to its natural balance of, for life, right?
Yes. Yes. I appreciate you so much. And it makes me think about like the vision that's needed for that and like the role of artists. So I wanted to shout out artists that participated in building toward this. Some people received, some people may, if they signed up for the box to receive, and it is made by Sandy Yee, who's an incredible fabric artist, and it's a piece of kelp, and it's shaped after her wonderful hands and fingers. She calls herself a two-finger sister, and for those of us that have it, we can like wrap it around ourselves, drape it over our doors, wear it as a belt, a scarf, etc. And we felt it was important to acknowledge, the role of the oceans, because if we like to breathe, then we need oceans. If we like an atmosphere, we need oceans. And the oceans are part of us, right? As water systems ourselves. I think of ourselves as like, little individual fleshy water bags. And this kelp in the ocean, kelp has an amazing healing power within the ocean ecosystems. And of course, kelp forests, are being destroyed. And at the same time, they are very regenerative themselves and can rebuild themselves. But, things can only do so much, you know. And interestingly enough, seaweed does the same thing within our little water system as individual beings. Like it's a very cleansing and yummy food. And unfortunately, and white supremacy has made it that it's this, people basically talk crap about seaweed when it's awesome. And, it's a traditional food source for so many of us. And, it's kind of representative of this. It's kind of representative of the kind of creative handholding that we need from each other in order to build, a vision for the world where we are centered, and we have to see it and imagine it before we can do it, and I'm really grateful that the artists that we work with, we work with each other at Sins Invalid are so brilliant and offer so much, for our collective, like, vision of where we can go. It's not about individual stories, as you were saying, Crosby. It's about like our kind of collective vision for where we can go. And I just want to quickly shout out before we close out. We didn't mention Bianca Laureano and her words that Antoine was writing with and dancing to, and Juba Kalamka, who was the voice that people heard doing that reading. And yeah, I also saw that people wanted a little bit more information about how to watch We Love Like Barnacles. So it was a 2020 performance of Sins Invalid, and we just screened it. I'm sure we'll do it again, but you can sign up on our website to be on our newsletter, or on our IG or Facebook, and you can see the next time we do a screening. And we're collaborating with the Longmore Institute to be part of Superfest to show Loving with Three Hearts, which is a behind the scenes of the making of We Love Like Barnacles, right? How a bunch of Crips during the pandemic and did pull together like a performance in 2020. So if folks want to be up on all that, you should be. You can sign up. And also for all the fantastic work that MG is doing. I'm sure y'all have a website with the ways people can stay engaged with you.
Yeah, y'all can check us out at movementgeneration.org. It's .org, right? Not .com, right? .org? Okay. Yeah, don't do the .com because it's some completely different organization. So, wow, I wish we could just kick it and keep talking. There's been some pressure, I'm just going to name it in the chat, to give us more time. And at the same time, I know we're over. So, I'm just going to say, deep gratitude for you, Patty, for Sins, for all the work that you're doing. Ellen, for you too, because, I'm just so grateful to be, on the disability justice team with you and, dreaming up, how we can go deeper, not just for ourselves and our organization, but for movement spaces as well around disability justice. So I'm just quick closing thought from me. The truth is that, we really have no idea what's to come, whether it's with COVID, climate chaos, we don't know what's ahead of us. And unless we address root causes that create lasting systems of care and realize the inherent value of life, we're going to continue to struggle. And we have to plan with the most vulnerable in mind. And definitely, you know, Patty, I heard you say this as well, not shrink ourselves in the face of the tasks ahead. We all have wisdom. We all have a role to play. So with that, Ellen, any closing thoughts? Patty, do you want to close us out, say bye officially?
I'll just
Yeah,
say thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
you,
y'all.
Patty
Thanks, Ford
Crosby.
Foundation. Thank you for having us.
yeah, massive gratitude for everyone and all the logistics and people that are behind the scenes. And I mean, my first thought in closing us out was, I just gotta say it, like, fuck capitalism, fuck ableism,
Yeah.
fuck colonialism.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye.
Hi, Patty, Ellen, Crosby. Thank you. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for surfacing connections between climate justice and disability justice in the era of human-generated climate change. It's Lane Harwell here, Ford's Program Officer for Disability Futures. I'm a white, queer, middle-aged person. My disabilities are not visible. I have shoulder-length blonde hair, and I'm wearing a gray jacket and that kelp pelt that Patty describes wrapped around my neck. I'm zooming in today from Ohlone land. My pronouns are they and he. For those of you who are just joining us, I've had the pleasure of connecting with you throughout the festival with reminders of what's happening. Our final session this evening, Choosing Ourselves and Each Other, Queer Disabled Legacies, Desires and Dreams, starts at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and will feature a brilliant conversation between Sky Cubacub, Eli Clare, Leah Lakshmi, Deepsna Samarasina, moderated by Ryan Haddad, followed by a virtual dance party. Please join me in thanking Patty, Ellen, and Crosby. I'd also like to thank our access providers, our ASL interpreters, Michael Barrios and Sandra Romero Canas from Sign Nexus, and our audio describer, Europa Grace from Gravity Access Services, and our captioner, VTech. If there is anything we can do to enhance your festival experience, please let us know at events@fordfoundation.org. I hope to find you at the next session. Thanks for being with us.